Hello, I am Shweta Srinivasan from IIT Madras and an incoming business analyst at McKinsey. Cracking the consulting interview is an initiative I started to help management consulting aspirants with resume reviews and case solving. So do check out our initiative on LinkedIn, follow us on Medium, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. So let's start. So of the three main types of cases, profitability, market entry, and unconventional, this video will deal with the market entry case. We've already released a video on the profitability case, so do check that out. So let's begin. First, the interviewer gives me a case statement. Your client is an edtech player in Europe and is looking to expand operations to India. Should they do it? And if they're doing it, how should they go about it? Great. So step one, reiterate the case statement. So I'll be like, so we have to help our client, an edtech player from Europe, understand how and if they should penetrate the Indian market. And the interviewer tells me yes. All right, so let's proceed. First up, preliminary questions. So first, I'd like to know what period we are operating in. And the interviewer tells me, consider the current period. This is not in the pre-pandemic era. Next, I'd like to understand our objective because different companies at different stages prioritize differently. So some would prioritize for growth, some would prioritize for profits. The interviewer tells me, the criteria here is if we become profitable within a year of operations in the new market, it's good. Otherwise, we can't go ahead with this market entry. And they also want to capture a significant market size. Great. Next, I have a set of questions for the current market in which our client is operating in, essentially Europe. So I asked the interviewer, are we a pan-European company and do we have a presence elsewhere? And the interviewer tells me, we are a pan-European company, no other presence. Next, I'd like to know a little bit more about our products and services. So what do we offer and how can we access these products? So the interviewer tells me we have K-12 educational content videos and coding classes accessible via phones and tabs, both Android and iOS. And finally, I'd like to understand if we are a big player in Europe, and the interviewer tells me, yeah, we are the market leader there. Great. Next, I'd like to understand a little bit more about the new market which we're entering. So first, I'd like to understand if we're looking at any specific city or state in India. The interviewer is like, no specific targets initially, just consider India as a whole. Next, I'd like to understand if we are offering all of these products in India, or are we offering only a certain portion of the portfolio? And the interviewer tells me all products. Further, with respect to pricing, we're charging like 1,000 rupees per month on a subscription basis. And when I ask about the competitive environment, the interviewer tells me, consider three competitors, A, B, and C, with 50%, 30%, and 20% market shares respectively. And finally, this is a question which I usually ask, are there any regulatory barriers that I should be aware of at the outset, while analyzing this market entry? And the interviewer is like, no such outright regulatory barriers. So if you look at how we've structured preliminary questions, we have two questions regarding the statement, a set of questions on the client's current market, and a set of questions on the target market, which our client is looking at. So it's a good idea to structure your preliminary questions so you can be comprehensive and it'll also earn you brownie points. Another thing to remember is, apply your discretion while asking preliminary questions. You need not ask each and every one of these questions. You can ask the minimum questions required for you to, get a good understanding of the situation and start your case solving process. You do not want to spend too much time on preliminary questions also. So use this as a reference point and see which questions apply to that particular case. So moving on to the next aspect, which is structuring an initial framework. Now, what I'm presenting to you here is a very comprehensive structure, which I tend to use for solving market entry cases. And I arrived at this after solving like dozens of cases. Again, remember that market entry cases can be super extensive. You might not have to go through each and every one of these buckets during your case solving process because you have to solve a case in like less than 30 minutes usually. So you might be asked to skip over one or two of these buckets or more. And the interviewer will guide you as to where you should put your main focus on. So it's a good idea to present a comprehensive structure initially and then take the interviewer's cues and focus only on certain segments as per the necessity. But for the purpose of this video, I will be going through most of these segments in pretty detailed manner because I want you to understand how you can go about it. But also keep in mind that you might not have to do the same for all of your cases. So let's get started with the market analysis. Step one, I want to understand the market size. Now, to understand any market size, we'll have to first define a market. So say after interactions with the interviewer, I say that, I believe that a market can be the urban Indian households which have internet connectivity and where the kids have smart devices exclusively for themselves. So they can actually use it for their usual learning purposes. So now that we've defined the market, the next step is to do a guesstimate. Now, when you're doing a guesstimate within a case, you need not be extremely detailed. It is all right to, be a little less detailed than what you would be if you're solving a guesstimate on a standalone basis because you do have a time constraint. But again, check with the interviewer. Sometimes you might have to go like in a pretty detailed manner with your guesstimate. For the purpose of this video, I will say that the guesstimate which I'm going to demonstrate to you is a moderately detailed guesstimate. There is definitely scope to be a lot more detailed than what I am right now. So let's start. First, considering the population, 1.4 billion. Since I'm looking only at the urban market, I'll only focus on the 30% urban segment, which is around 420 million people. And, because I'm focusing only on households, I will consider on an average of 4 members per household, thus 100 million households. Again, I am simplifying the math to get numbers which are easy to work with. So all of these are approximations. I would definitely check them with the interviewer and see whether these approximations are okay. Next up, I would do an income split. So I'll definitely inform the interviewer that next step, I'd like to, split the urban households into lower middle class and below, middle class and upper middle class and above, according 20%, 60% and 20% weightages to each segment. If the interviewer is okay with the numbers, I'll proceed, else I'll modify them accordingly. So once you arrive at this stage, the next steps are all about, adding filters. First filter. Now that we have all these households, what percentage of them actually have access to smartphones and the internet? So I'm giving a 20%, 50% and a 100%, percentage penetration for smartphone and internet for each of the 3 segments. Definitely check with the interviewer and make sure that, these numbers are okay. So that gives me 4 million, 30 million and 20 million households under lower middle class and below, middle class and upper middle class and above segments for my further analysis. So next I'll apply another filter. So feel free to pause the video here and think of what other filters you can apply. And that will be a good exercise on its own. So the next filter I will apply is, how many of these households have smartphones exclusively for students? And if so, how many smartphones do they have exclusively for the kids? Now, given that I'm considering an average family size of 4, I'm operating with the assumption that on an average, you would consider like 2 kids per household. Again, this is an approximation. This is on average, so it need not be exactly accurate. So these are my assumptions. I'm going to consider that, lower middle class and below, you might not have exclusive devices available full-time to the kids. Middle class, I'm assuming it to be 1. And upper middle class and above, I'm assuming it to be 2. So again, these are assumptions. The next filter is, now that I have the set of people who do have access to devices and the internet, what percentage of them would actually opt for EdTech? Now, I am eliminating lower middle class and below because I've already assumed that there are 0 exclusive smartphones. So for the middle class, I'm considering 20%, and for upper middle class and above, I'm considering like a 6% EdTech adoption rate. Now, to justify these numbers, I could give like a qualitative argument by saying some of the factors which affect your adoption of EdTech, include awareness, accessibility, and the value proposition of the service. So considering these factors, I would come up with these numbers. So this would be more or less a discussion with the interviewer, and we can, collaboratively arrive at these numbers. So next, it's all about multiplying the various percentages. So I would just look at 60% of the urban households, which is 60 million middle class, multiplied by 50% who have access to smartphone and the internet, multiplied by 1 smartphone per student, multiplied by 20%, who opt for EdTech. That gives me 6 million. Next, if I repeat the same calculation for upper middle class and the high class segments, that gives me a market size there of 24 million. And I get an overall market size of 30 million. Great. Now, this is one aspect of the market entry case done. Next, we'll focus on the market share aspect under market analysis. Now, if you have access to competitor data, competitor benchmarking is the way to go. But sometimes the interviewer can outright, give you the market share that they expect to grab. But in this case, I'm going to demonstrate how you can arrive at that number via a competitor benchmarking. So we already know there are 3 competitors. Now, when you have to understand who will, adopt the services of which competitor, there are some metrics which you can analyze. Now, here are three metrics which I'm focusing on. First is the price. Next is what product is offered. Third is the quality of the product. Now, you can arrive at these metrics, by placing yourself in the shoes of a student or a family. So you're going to take a decision as to whether you're going to opt for competitor A, B, or a client. What are things you would consider, or what are the things you would compare? Those are the metrics which you need to analyze. So the interviewer gives me the data once I ask for it. So the interviewer is like, the pricing for competitors A, B, and C are 500, 800, and 1,300 rupees respectively per month. Offerings are the same as that of our client, K-12 videos and coding, classes online, that is. Quality for A is pretty low, for B is medium, and for C is high. And market share is as mentioned before. Now, I would like you to pause the video here and see if you can, arrive at a certain conclusion regarding market share based on the data provided to you. So all you have to do here is observe the data and, make some conclusions regarding where the market will, move towards once our client enters the market. So here's how I would go about it. Let me compare client with the competitor C for now, because we have the same offerings. We offer them at the same high quality, but we offer it at 300 rupee a month cheaper than competitor C. So now people who are currently with competitor C would see that, hey, we have a new international player coming in, same products, good quality, and they're 300 rupees cheaper. So it's better for me to move to them, right? So realistically, that 20% market is something we can capture. So I'll write that down. Next up, let me compare our client with competitor B. Now, they offer medium quality products at 800. We offer high quality products at 1,000. Now, while competitor B's customers might, find competitor C a little inaccessible because they have to pay 500 for this quality premium, our client is offering the same quality premium at just 200 rupees extra. So definitely a portion of competitor B's current market would consider moving to our client. And I'm making an assumption that 40% of competitor B's current market will move to our client. That essentially gives me 12% market share. Next, if I look at competitor A, right, they offer low quality products, but they're pretty cheap. It's just 500 a month. Now, if competitor A's customers found moving to competitor B, by paying a 300 rupee premium, not extremely worth it for a medium quality upgrade, I doubt that they would be willing to pay twice as much for, moving to a high quality product. So maybe competitor A's customer base is expecting something different, maybe like just a cheaper product. So they are probably not the kind of clients who we can, cater to. So on that front, I would say that, competitor A's market share is like kind of hard to capture. So we are not going to, focus on them. Overall, this would mean an overall market share of 32%. That is 12% plus 20%. So great. We've looked at the market size, 41 million, and the market share, 32%, sorry. So next up are growth and trends. Now, people usually don't add this bucket, but I think it's good to spend a minute or two, just to be comprehensive with the market analysis. So the first trend I would observe is increasing awareness for EdTech, because more and more people are aware of it from marketing and social media. Next, better accessibility. Now in India, you're having rising smartphone and internet penetration, and you're having availability of cheap devices. Again, to showcase your business acumen, you can talk about, the recent talks around Jio and Google's latest, very cheap smartphone, which is going to come out soon. So those are just some bits you can add now and then during a case in order to showcase your business acumen. So you can be like, accessibility is only going to increase. So that is definitely a positive. Next, remote learning needs. Of course, the pandemic has, introduced the need for good remote learning methodologies, and people are willing to embrace online learning a lot more now. So definitely the time is right for making such an entry. And finally, tier 2 and 3 cities are really driving digital growth in the country. And they are also yet to be fully tapped. So there's a lot of potential. So these are some of the growth and trends aspects that you can discuss with the interviewer. So let's take a look at the overall structure again. We've completed the market analysis. The next aspect is operational feasibility analysis. So here, first I'll start off with the value chain feasibility. So You can write out, what you think is the value chain for this sort of a market entry. So these are some of the main steps which I'm writing down. Again, if it's, a manufacturing player, or if it's a factory, it's a little bit easier to write down the value chain. So you can be like, procurement of raw materials, storage, transportation, manufacturing, distribution, marketing. So that is sort of like a standard journey which you're aware of. But for something like an edtech player, it's a little bit more difficult to have a sequential process. So you can write down what you think are the main steps, and do check with the interviewer to see if there's some step you might have missed out on. Definitely add that back in. So these are some of the steps which I have written down. First is creation of content, because we are currently a European player and we might have to tweak it up as per India's requirements. Next, setting up a website and a portal in India. Third, hiring sales and marketing personnel, because we do want to have like a focused marketing strategy, of course. And finally, server and data management, because you might have requirements that if you collect any data, it has to be stored within the country. So if there are any such requirements, you would have to abide by that as well. So now that we've set out the value chain, let's analyze it. When it comes to creation of content, it is moderately difficult to do so. So this is something you would conclude after discussion with the interviewer. So say the interviewer tells you that, so the client now has to become familiar with the entire Indian syllabus, see how lessons are structured. So it's of moderate difficulty. Setting up the India website is something easy to do. This is a pan-European company and they have the capabilities. Hiring sales and marketing personnel is of moderate difficulty, because now they have to build this capacity from scratch. And server and data management is a little hard because of currently slightly unclear data protection rules, and it is an expensive process as well. So say the interviewer tells you that this is a hard process because of some lack of clarity on the regulations front. Okay, so now you've looked at the value chain feasibility, and you've looked at the feasibility of each leg of the value chain. Next, you should use this knowledge for the mode of entry analysis. Now, there are three main ways in which our client can enter the Indian market if they choose to do so. First, they can build their presence from scratch, that is like greenfield. Next, they can have strategic partnerships or joint ventures with existing players. Third, they can enter M&A in an M&A with any of the existing player. So I would ask I would talk about these to the interviewer, and ask the interviewer where there's like greater potential for us to exploit. With respect to building presence from scratch, based on our analysis, we've seen that we have to spend considerable amount of time, energy, and money in familiarizing ourselves with the syllabus, and abiding by the local regulations, hiring data, servers, etc. So that's a little hard, and it'll also take some time. So the current demand that is there due to the pandemic cannot be tapped into immediately. So I'll be like, okay, so let's look at some of the other options. When we look at strategic partnerships and joint ventures, so I would ask the interviewer, the opportunity here is to consider outsourcing the difficult portions of a value chain, say, to some existing player who has capacity on that front. So I'd ask the interviewer if there are any players whom we can consider for getting into a joint venture with. The interviewer tells me, no, like we've sort of checked that out and it's really not, we are not finding anyone who we are satisfied with. Great. Next, when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, we can acquire an existing edtech player, or at least a majority stake in them, and we can push our products through them. So they would offer, like the marketing capacity and like the understanding of the Indian syllabus, and we can offer some of our quality upgrades. We can offer some of our tech stacks, etc. So the interviewer tells me, that's a good idea. Consider that our client decides to acquire competitor C. And so usually once you do an acquisition, your market share estimates might change. For example, if the interviewer had told me we are going to acquire competitor A, then I would have to go and change the market share estimates, because, now if we are going to maintain our same 1,000 rupee per month strategy, all the 50% of the current market share might not come to us. But say if we bring it to 750, there might be a certain percentage who come to us. But in this case, since it's just competitor C and we've already considered, capturing their whole market, the interviewer like, let's not change the market share estimate. Let's go as is. So great. Now, synergies is not something I'm looking at for this particular case, but that's obviously something you can take a look at. And when you have to, figure out which of the competitors our client has to acquire, you can use the synergies analysis there as well. But so far, we've analyzed the market, found a market size of 30 million, a market share of 32%, and analyzed the growth trends. Then we've looked at the operational feasibility, found that, there are some chinks in the armor for the value chain, and seen that the mode of entry which is preferred is, acquiring competitor C, an existing edtech player with 20% market share currently. Next up is the financial feasibility. So you can use return on investment, the payback period, the net present value. There are multiple approaches you can take. You can definitely check with the interviewer which of the approaches the interviewer wishes you to pursue. So here I'm going to look at, monthly profits and the payback method. Now, again, this depends on what sort of data is available to you. So definitely discuss with the interviewer and take a call. So first, let's look at the monthly revenue. The monthly revenue is essentially market size times market share times the price we're charging per month. 30 million times 32% times 1000 rupee per month, which is 9.6 billion rupees, right? Great. Next, we'll look at the monthly costs. So say like the interviewer is like, don't need to estimate the cost, just list the cost drivers. So I'll be like, so broadly costs are associated with people, infrastructure, processes. And now because we are going to, have like an acquisition, there might be some costs associated with integration. So these are the main sources of costs. And the interviewer tells me, all right, so the overall cost has been estimated to be around 7 billion rupees per month. So essentially profit per month is 2.6 billion rupees. And the interviewer also tells me our initial investment cost is rupees 20 billion. So essentially, I would, based on this data, conclude that in 8 to 9 months, we'll be able to recover the initial investment. So here I am not using a discounted payback method, which is usually a lot more accurate than, just multiplying 2.6 times 8 or 9 to get a number over 20 billion. Definitely that is a lot more accurate. But when you're solving a case and you are, having like limited time and you cannot really use a calculator or any other software, it's all right to do a back of the envelope calculation like this to, see whether we'll be able to recover our initial cost within a year. So essentially, we'll definitely be profitable each month, and we'll also be able to recover our initial investment costs within a year. So financially, we definitely do fit the criteria presented by the interviewer or our client initially that, we want to be profitable within a year. That will definitely happen, both on a per month basis and in terms of recovering investment costs. So financially, this seems a pretty good option. So we've looked at the market analysis, we've looked at operational feasibility, we've looked at financial feasibility. The last step is to analyze the risks involved. And I structure risks as risks before we enter the market, risks during the process of entry, and risks after entering the market. Now you can also structure it this way. You can use, any other framework for talking about risks, but do try to be structured. It definitely, adds a better flavor to whatever you're presenting. So when I look at risks before entering, here are some of the risks. There is a chance that some other international player might also plan an entry in the Indian market, because given the market size, given the current, inflow of capital from venture firms and the interest in our startup space, there could be some other international player who's planning an entry either through an acquisition, through investments, or a direct entry. Next, there could be merger and acquisitions between the existing players in India. So some sort of consolidation can happen before we enter the market. So, that can make it a little bit more difficult for us to get enough market share and, get the profitability. Next, some risks during entry include, chance of the deal falling off, and that could result in bad PR, both in the Indian market as well as in our home market. So that is something we have to be aware of. There could be some regulatory issues which could, like result in a delay in the deal, or which could, stall the deal. And there could be some delays overall in the deal apart from regulatory issues that can add to the cost involved, and that might also affect our profitability prediction. So we might not be as profitable as we thought we could be if delays keep happening with respect to the deal and we have to spend a lot of money. Some other risks which could take place once we finish our entry is again consolidation among the top two players. Because remember, we are capturing market share from B and we are acquiring player C. But now the current top two players, that is A and B, could actually consolidate, and they could form a pretty formidable competitor for our client. And we did not account for that fact when we were doing our analysis so far. So that's definitely a risk to be aware of. Second, of course, competitor strategies. So they could engage in aggressive marketing tactics and, customer acquisition tactics that could catch us off guard, and that could potentially, derail our profitability plans. Next, issues relating to taxation as a digital entity. So this is sort of a blanket risk that I'm presenting here. Definitely, we would have to read the exact documents to understand what are the direct issues which pertain to our entity. But broadly, this is definitely a risk worthy of analyzing. Next, we have resumption of offline school and services. So, once the pandemic subsides, say we go back to a slightly altered but close to pre-pandemic normal. On that front, people might not use these edtech services as much as they do now. So maybe our market sizing and market share estimates may be a little off, and that could impact our finances. And finally, you could have backlash against excessive marketing. Now, again, this is some place where you can use your business acumen. So we do know about some of the recent backlash faced by some edtech players with respect to their marketing, particularly for their online coding classes. So, there could be some backlash, both direct with respect to our marketing and indirect due to, marketing from other players that is just, turning the tide against online classes and edtech in general. So these are some of the risks we can consider. Again, I have listed out a lot of the risks which I'm able to think of. If you can think of any other risks or any other structuring for risks, do mention it in the comment section. And you need not mention all of these risks while talking to the interviewer. It's all right if you prioritize the risks and only mention them, because you don't want to spend way too much time on this, and you do not want to give a laundry list as well. So now we've sort of analyzed the entire market entry strategy. And finally, we have to provide recommendations. So again, I usually structure my recommendations. So product, process, and collaborations is the way I'm structuring it right now. This might not be perfectly messy, but it is all right as long as, your points only fall within one of these buckets. So when it comes to structuring recommendations, it is all right to be a little loose on the messy aspect, because what you're trying to do here is not have a comprehensive list of all possible recommendations, but you want to present your recommendations in a structured manner. So with respect to the product, these are some recommendations. Again, you need not list all of them. You can, interact with the interviewer and present only the most important ones. So here I would be like, let's ensure high quality and easy to use interface. That's important. We can focus on different syllabus for different boards, definitely, because we have multiple boards here. The third recommendation would be to have mechanisms to monitor performance in a meaningful manner and, not just deliver content. The fourth aspect would be to potentially link to parents or guardians' mobiles to convey reports. Because when you think about how, a family decides whether the kid is going to opt for an edtech initiative or not, it is usually, especially for K-12 to class 12, at least for certain grades, it's the parents who take a decision as to whether the student is going to, be a part of this initiative or not, since they are the ones who are going to pay for it. So there are some recommendations which you can, direct towards the parents as well. So this is one such recommendation. And finally, given that we are a pan-European player and a market leader there, we can leverage that base and launch an international student community, like it could just be something like an international doubt discussion forum, or it could be, like virtual video calls with people from the other countries, etc. So that'll be really enticing in terms of, not just improving your skills in the core subjects, but also your interpersonal and cultural skills as well. So that is also something which we can market. Next are the set of recommendations with respect to the process. So the first recommendation would be to focus on robust customer service. That is extremely important, and that is one of the main factors which will enable you to retain the customers you actually acquire. Second, it's important to focus on learning and knowledge gain and not just on career-oriented outcomes. So we need to keep that in mind while marketing. And finally, leveraging the European market leadership for promotions is also a good idea. And with respect to collaborations, I would suggest collaborating with the government on factors like remote examinations and evaluations, maybe coming up with a different mode of evaluation on various subjects or various courses in a remote manner. And next, we can collaborate with mental health startups and psychologists to offer support. Given that, it's the pandemic period, students have had to endure online learning for months now. a lot of them would feel a little dull and depressed. So we can consider incorporating such collaborations within our product to make it a lot more wholesome and project that we actually care about the student on an overall basis and we care about a child's overall development. So these are some of the recommendations. Again, feel free to mention only the recommendations which are important. Structuring recommendations is always a good idea. Finally, we have the synthesis. Now, it's important that your synthesis is crisp, 30 to 45 seconds, not longer than that. Do not spend too much time highlighting the process of case solving. Don't say that, we first looked at the market analysis, then we looked at the operational feasibility, financial feasibility, and risks. Based on that, that is not necessary because the interviewer was with you throughout that process. So talk only about talk about your process with brevity and mention only the key outcomes of your analysis. So here's a example synthesis. So I would tell the interviewer that based on our analysis, entering the Indian market via an acquisition would offer monthly profits of 2.6 billion rupees, and we can recover the initial investment costs in around 8 to 9 months. Hence, we can go ahead with the entry. Now, to mitigate some of the risks and further bolster profits, we can focus on good product interfaces, robust customer service, marketing, collaborations with governments, and mental health players. So essentially, I'm just putting 2 bullet points. One bullet point about the process and the conclusion, whether we should enter the market or not. Another bullet point just highlighting some of the recommendations. So let's analyze like what we've seen in the last 20 to 30 minutes of this case. First off, structured preliminary questions. This is very important. Definitely gives brownie points, helps you be comprehensive. Next, I gave a rationale for questions, or I shared my thought process, and I didn't just ask for data or facts. You would have especially seen this during the guesstimate, where I presented my rationale for assuming certain percentages, and I just checked with the interviewer to see whether these numbers are fair or whether I should modify them. So that's important. Next aspect, using segmentation to eliminate possibilities. Again, as evinced in the guesstimate section, I did not spend time analyzing the rural segment because for this purpose, I'm only looking at the urban market. I did not spend time analyzing the segment where students do not have exclusive access to mobile phones because again, that's not important for our case. So it's important to prioritize and segment in a wise manner. Next, I try to maintain meatiness as much as possible. Now, it is slightly harder in a market entry case where your overall structure itself, it's not meaty, it is trying to be as comprehensive as possible. So it's important to see and try to be as meaty as possible. But if it's not possible, then, just list out your factors in a structured manner and check with the interviewer whether you missed out a bucket or two. Next, I structured my recommendations. That's also a good suggestion. Helps you be comprehensive and, helps you earn some brownie points. Next, providing a mini synthesis at important junctures is a good idea. So in this video, after analyzing each segment, I sort of mentioned to you that, see, this is what we've looked at so far. This is what we'll be looking at next. Especially for market entry cases, or if any case is like a little bit long winding and tedious, it's a good idea to offer some mini synthesis so that you and the interviewer are on the same page and can proceed, with similar ideas from that point. Of course, I had a rational and quick guesstimate. I did not spend too much time getting into too many nitty-gritty with respect to the guesstimate because I have to solve the overall case in like 30 minutes tops. So I can't spend 15 minutes of it on solving a guesstimate. Sometimes you would have a case which is purely focused on guesstimates. That's okay. But in this scenario, I sort of knew that the guesstimate is not the most important aspect of the case. So I should not spend way too much time on it. And of course, finally, a short and concise synthesis which covers all the essentials and doesn't take too much of time. So it should be a synthesis, not a monologue, as I usually say. So with that, I'd like to wrap up this demonstration of a market entry case. I really hope you like this video and I wish you all the best with respect to your case preparation. So do check out Cracking the Consulting Interview on LinkedIn. Check out our article series on Medium. And please like and subscribe to this video and the channel if you find this useful, and do share the word with your friends. And with that, we'll be back with another video soon. Thank you.